So, a common myth I often hear about ABA is that the things we teach are so artificial, unnatural, not real.
My name is Nancy Marchese. I'm a board-certified doctoral level behavior analyst and a clinical psychologist. My goal is to help 2 million children with autism and their families by transforming their lives, and I can't wait to help you too.
This is absolutely not true. Everything we teach can be useful in the real world. How do we make that happen? How do we make sure that the skills that we teach to kids with autism can be used in real life? I've got 3 tips for you. Tip number 1, most important. Think about what's meaningful to that child, to the family, to the community, and beyond. Start with goals that are meaningful and matter. That's your first tip. Second tip is that we want to think about what does this skill look like in the real world? How does that look like? What are the nuances? If we're thinking about conversations, how do they start? How do they keep going? How do they stop? And everything in between. Teach it to look like what it's going to look like in the end, in the real world. Think about the real world. That's your goalpost in terms of teaching. And finally, tip number 3. In order to make things useful in the real world, we need to teach under the same conditions by which that skill will be used. Use similar materials. Teach in the natural environment whenever you can. Think about what that's going to look like. How is the other person going to respond? What types of skills does that child need to be able to demonstrate in order for it to be useful and natural and be applicable to the real world? So, can we teach skills that matter, that can be useful in the real world? Absolutely. If you follow these 3 tips, make sure it's meaningful. Think about what that skill is going to look like in the real world. And finally, teach under the same conditions by which that child needs to demonstrate that skill in the real world. Absolutely follow those 3 tips, and you'll make sure that every single skill that that child learns is useful and applicable and matters in their day-to-day life.
There's only so much we could cover in the short amount of time we had today. If you found value in what we talked about, go to breakthroughautism.ca, join our newsletter, and also follow me on my socials.